I think that we actually started a fire. Now, majority of the people are getting comfortable to talk about pay transparency. I think this jealousy talk is operating from irrational fear. We shouldn't let fear to interfere a potentially good policy in the organization. At first, we empower people to believe that, we break these cultural taboos, good things can happen. But when the system is not catching up, then people will be feeling powerless again. Okay. Technology actually enable to have much smaller team, but then everybody is expected to work at their best. Quality would be the priority. Quantity doesn't mean much. I think the future of work is smaller team, and people only want to work with really excellent people. So there will be a big group of people being left out, and what are we gonna do with them?
How do I say your name?
Prestine.
Prestine. Okay, cool. What do you do, Prestine?
I am, first and foremost, a photographer. I focus on human story. So I would say I'm a human story photographer. You can also say I'm a documentary photographer. And I founded MalaysianPAYGAP, but I have a hard time labeling myself as a founder or a CEO.
How much time do you spend photographing and how much time do you spend as a CEO?
Every day I have to work on MalaysianPAYGAP. Every day.
I have to.
I have to. It's not only is a social responsibility, it's also my career responsibility. As for the photography, whenever I get a very good opportunity, I will take time off to do it.
And you take care of endangered cultures, disappearing cultures. How far do you go from Kuala Lumpur to meet those cultures? Or are they subcultures within Kuala Lumpur? What kind of culture?
Usually I travel around the world to do disappearing cultures.
Oh, wow.
I would say that in a year, I need to have at least 1 month to fully dedicate on disappearing cultures.
I got a book like that from a photographer. He was going to plenty of... You've seen this book, maybe?
Is it Human?
Maybe. I think so.
Could
You've
be.
seen it.
Yeah.
Is it the same kind of photography that you do?
Yes.
Okay.
Sort of.
Where can we see your work?
On Instagram.
Okay.
Disappearing cultures. It drives me. If I don't do disappearing culture, I feel like my heart cannot be full enough to contribute into MalaysianPAYGAP.
How do you finance the international trips and the living in those remote places, I imagine?
It would be self-finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But occasionally I get a very good brands to pay me to do work. Then I'll use that money to travel.
Okay. And you expose or it's only Instagram?
Instagram is the main channel. Eventually, I would like to have exhibition and also publish a photo book.
Okay. What led you to this topic of pay? I think you write it as career and wage
transparency.
Why this topic is so dear to you?
I think it's been dear to me since 10 years ago when I first started to work. After I graduated university in the US, I came back here. I actually never planned to look for any job, knowing that the pay here is quite low. At that time, I was supported by photography and also copywriting. And I met a random magazine editor at a cafe and she offered me a job. I took it, but I can see there's so much inefficiency in the day-to-day work life. I think after first week, I told her that, hey, the job that you want me to do, I can get it done in just 4 hours. So maybe I shouldn't come here for 8 hours. Can I please readjust my work arrangement? And they rejected that. And at that time, I could already feel that this is not going to be my career because I can't be spending 8 hours a day in this office knowing that I had already done my work. It's just weird. And then you have to count in the commute time. And what triggered a big change was that I realized that they were not paying EPM and SOXO on time. So a lot of the older employees that were getting backtracked on their deserving full compensation. So when I brought it up to them and said that this is something that we should actually talk to the manager about it, they told me that this is just how Malaysia is like. There's not much that you can do. We don't really hold much power. So then I decided to quit. But before I quit, I also make sure that they pay my due. And since then, I realized that this is just not for me. I don't want to ever work in Malaysia. I do not want to apply to any company. And then after that, during COVID, I was stuck here for the longest time. Previously, every month I had to travel out for work. And then when I'm here, I want to get jobs here. So I'm curious about how brands are paying. So I talked to my photography first friends, and then they refused to tell me how I should be pricing myself. So once again, this like problem pop up again. They are giving so much upper hand to the clients. So I just thought this is such a big problem. And when I first started MalaysianPAYGAP, it was for a very selfish reason. I just wanted to create a page and then slowly accumulate different job roles. So when I asked the photographer to submit, they wouldn't know it's me. I just wanted to find out about their rates.
Okay.
But somehow it blew up, and then I just kept doing it.
Cool. So you started with photography as the first roles, or
Yeah.
different one? Yeah. And how do you keep track of all the different roles today? Like how many data points do you have? Can you give us a feel for how big the scale is at the moment?
I think right now we have around 30,000 submission for salary data. And then our top industry coverage is in banking and also tech.
And is it the same way of collecting the data as before, or have you've changed?
It's more or less the same way. At first, when we started, we used a Google form to collect data. And then we have an Excel sheet where we just let anybody access to it. And after I had that for 2 weeks, people contact me and say I should somewhat, lock up the Excel sheet so that people won't extract the data for their own use. And then I moved into having Google Data Studio.
Okay.
And then we put up a dashboard. But that dashboard, I find it quite meaningless for people to utilize because, you can see the big picture, but what does the big picture has to do with you? I know that we have to build a very user-friendly product, but I think in that period of time, 2023, I tried to assemble a team of volunteers, but whatever that we propose or we put in the plan is too ambitious for a volunteer to work on. So that kind of stuck with us for a bit. And in 2024, after we hosted a Workslayer Summit, we got funded. So that's when I used the money to hire a more proper team to do a searchable database.
Okay. Maybe you have two topics that are quite different, the pay transparency, and then if I understand correctly, you're trying to keep track or keep a record of cultures that are disappearing.
Yeah.
Is there a way to get to the one insight or one driving passion of yours, or you are split between the two? Is there a common element to those two?
I think I'm so split between the two, but the common element is quite big actually. Is that actually I think like whatever that I do is because I find that in the society, a lot of problems that we have is because people lack empathy and sympathy because they don't know each other's story. So what I'm trying to do both is to provide the platform and means for people to understand better. And it's through storytelling. It's just when I approach with MalaysianPAYGAP, I know that I don't want to be the producer of the content. So I design it in a way that I'm just screenshotting what people are saying. I don't even edit what they told me. And then I think that built trust too, because when people can see the direct bubble and through reading between the lines, you can sort of know what this person character is in a sense. But for disappearing culture, because of my photography background, I want to hold the creation control of it. It can actually go bigger if it is a platform where people can come in and crowdsource what they think is disappearing culture. But because of the artistic dominance that I want to hold, it is just my project.
Super. Super. What's one belief about pay transparency that you held before that got changed over the years? Like one thing that got transformed?
Right when I first started, I thought that pay transparency is a cultural problem. I think when people stop associating pay with their self-value and esteem, then this could be resolved. But then after a few years, I realized that even if we break this cultural taboo, you still need to have a very structural system buy-in in order for it to work, especially in policy. I think from what I can see in the US, when they put in pay transparency in different states, then the change is real. And then that change will move cultural taboo to a greater space. But here it's harder for us to get through the angle of policy making. We're doing cultural taboo, but it will leave people feeling frustrated because, okay, they have broken this taboo, but my workplace refused to change. There's no policy in the government say that, we should have like transparent information display on every job posting. Then I find that people will maybe get a bit of resentment. Yeah. I feel like at first we empower people to believe that, we break these cultural taboos, good things can happen. But when the system is not catching up, then people will be feeling powerless
Or
again.
frustrating. It's more frustrating not to know about the problem than to know about the problem and not being able to solve it.
Yeah.
And so what's the play then? I mean, can I say what I feel you're trying to do and then you tell me if I'm wrong or not?
Okay.
It looks like there's going to be a natural competition between people who have more advanced practice of good human resources processes and companies who are not there yet. So I imagine the play is, let's improve the more advanced companies. And then over time, those guys will recruit easier from the pool of candidates because people will choose those companies that are more advanced. Pay transparency is one of them. And then the other ones will want to emulate the leading companies, so they will end up doing it too. Is that the play you have?
I would say yes and no, because I do believe that smaller organization can be the driving force too. I think SME could be the driving force. I think if it's all the MNC implementing pay transparency at their organization, then the SME would say that, because we are short on resources, we're lacking in those organizational culture, so we cannot move this forward. I wouldn't say that certain better companies should be the pioneer in bringing this forward.
You could have pioneers in SMB and pioneers in MNCs competing.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what you try to emulate? Like, are you consciously and purposefully doing this?
I think we're still exploring. I think as of now, we are very comfortable advocating this idea to fellow employees, our community members. But to the employers, I think we are still kind of scared to find out what their real thoughts are. But there are companies who come to us supporting what we do, but then they also realize that this is necessary, but they're not ready for it. So this is a positive sign. I think we need around 2 more years to slowly build up that comfort and relationship with companies to really know what exactly we can do.
And how long have you been doing MalaysianPAYGAP?
Since 2022.
2022.
In February.
So 3 years, so you say 5 years. In 3 years, you have touched the consumers or the employees. 2 more years to get the employers.
When I first started, I already know that this is something that I need to do at least for 10 years to see the impact of it.
Interesting. And you were not worried about having to give 10 years of your life for an outcome that is not different now?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I think our outcome has already achieved. Maybe I'm too easily feeling contented.
Okay.
But as long as a person is empowered to take negotiation into their hand, or to realize that this is my current pay, I want better pay, what can I do to achieve that? Or to know that there is a pay gap, what information can they gather to help improve their own situation? I think the outcome is already achieved. I don't care whether it's 1 million people getting impacted or 1 or 2 person. Because when 1 or 2 person get impacted, it's spread into their social circle so greatly, right? They will be more generous to their friends and family. They're happier overall. Even their pets could be happier.
Love it. If you were to tell us about one action you're trying to influence in the life of the employees first, and then employers, the dream outcome you would expect from them. So what kind of actions, the next step? So I get in touch with MalaysianPAYGAP, I look at your stuff. You spoke about negotiation. Is that the one step you'd like employees to take?
Actually, I would say negotiation will be probably the third one. I think the first one I would definitely want people to get away from is that by exposing themselves to various industry, and then usually in the post, people will talk about a bit of their company size, company culture. I wish they can have better understanding of this. So when you are coming across somebody, okay, maybe this person is earning 4,000 after 15 years of working in the industry. Maybe don't judge the person. Like, I feel that with such a big collection of information, people should understand how the economy sort of works and have less judgment and more sympathy. And then knowing that when women have to return back to work after giving birth, it's just harder for them to get a job because of a lot of societal judgment, not necessary. This reflect in that person working capability. So this is the first thing that I want people to understand. Like having the means to even start discussing about pay equality. Negotiation comes third. What would the second one? I think second one would be believing that the information that you see, even though it's out of your knowledge previously, not necessarily means that they are fake information. I think we get this a lot. I guess people don't know that we actually spend a little bit of time talking to each person. We filter out a lot of sus posting. And those that we really post, we can trace back to that person identity, knowing that this is their real story. But sometimes when we post a job that pays quite comfortably, people will think that this is fake, the person is bragging. And because they have this disbelief, they could never move on to the next phase, which is negotiation. So I wish that they could accept that there is a certain salary ceiling out there for you to achieve. Yeah.
But that's a lot of work to filter, and actually it's kind of in numbers, you are decreasing how good it would look. So you talked about 30,000. If you were not doing this filtering, and if you were not tracking the identity or making sure that you can match the identity, you could probably have like hundreds of thousands. Why this choice of curating and making sure that everyone is a person?
I think because in Malaysia, there's a lot of distrust about data and about information. So if we want to hit a high number, of course, that's very attractive. That could get us funded too and more supported in the business sense. But when we operate from a society where data trust is low, then we should be even more careful holding this one.
Okay.
People get triggered to know that not all data entries are payslip verified. We do offer this one, so a lot of people associate payslip verify as our signature. But we also understand that when we put such a high barrier to people, then we lose out even more data. And having that set of data, and we actually have AI in place to help us to filter a little bit to take up the load of us, but it's still a big load because each payslip is individually verified.
Thank you for doing this work. It sounds like horrendous on your side, but it's good for the community.
On the tech team side.
On the tech team side. Another thing, so I was asking you about actions for the employees. What about actions for employers? Even if for now you're still not pushing them too much, what is the hope that you have when you start engaging with companies?
So for next year, we are really hoping that they would use our platform to do benchmarking. We call it live benchmarking because I think how benchmarking currently works is quite slow and old school. You have to go to a company and then you have to get a report in a few months. Sometimes it even takes 2 years to get a report. And we believe that salary data has a freshness of maximum 2 years. So hoping that we can build a tool, they can input us with data and then they can do direct competitive analysis with their identified competitors.
At the beginning of your career, you were more an employee trying to understand the other side, which were employers. Now you have a responsibility towards employees and the community, and you also have a responsibility towards the businesses and founders like you, who are also trying to set up win-win deals. How do you navigate this need to balance the interest of two groups of people who sometimes don't have, they have contradictory, or sometimes it can clash, those interests? If one try to maximize their side, it clashes. So how do you balance the two?
I don't think I'm trying to balance at all.
Okay. So more on your employee side advocating?
It's definitely not trying to balance. I think I'm just trying to stay true to myself, stay true to my values while making things work.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I put it.
Okay, so you're more on the employee side.
I wouldn't say I would take side. I think I'm more on my side. I really need to make sure that the actions that I take is true to my values. I think my values would be, I really care about community and then integrity and then also fostering trust and empathy in the society.
That's the way you balance.
Yeah.
You basically answer, I was asking a question poorly basically.
Yeah.
And in my follow-up too. Okay.
So anything else, I do not need to balance them. These are the values that I have to balance and then they should fall into place.
Love it. Super. What do you think are the main problems in organizations in Malaysia, in Asia, regarding the pay transparency, the pay gap, those problems?
I actually think it's a lack of data backing fear. I think a few weeks ago, we posted a video. We went to CoinGecko. They're a crypto aggregator.
Okay.
So they have pay transparency in place. We posted a video, talk in depth about how they do it. Still, there are comments saying that this is a bad idea because everyone will have jealousy towards one another. But when we were in the company, we can feel the culture. I don't think there's jealousy because everything is so clear. It actually saves the leader time to having the need to discuss with each employee about money. So he removed out this hustle. There is a system that people can follow and expect. It's like they set the game rules really clear. You know what you need to achieve in order to up a level. And that clarity makes people really focus on what can they do the best in order to achieve that. So what we felt in the company is that every individual is so focused in making themselves the best version. I think this jealousy talk is operating from an irrational fear. I wish that when companies say this, they can actually run a survey to ask how do people actually feel about this? What is the ratio? What is the percentage? Then they can justify this as the reason. If not, I think we shouldn't let fear to interfere a potentially good policy in the organization.
I love it. I think the question then is, if you want me to get on this train, is what are the steps that I will take? What will happen at each step? And you have one example with CoinGecko. Maybe that's the blueprint for all the other organizations going from, I imagine they were not pay transparent before and they became.
Yeah.
So that journey, how long did it take? How many months or years?
I think for them, they have been operating for 11 to 12 years. I shouldn't say it on behalf of them because I think they are very particular about how their story can be told.
Okay.
But I would say now that I have this mini startup, I should implement pay transparency in the company. I can say from a point of view that how I would do it. But for larger organization with thousands or hundreds of people, it's harder for me to say for them because I lack that experience. So I would say that we need to have a very clear financial understanding of where we stand. It should also gather data from the market data comparing to our financial standing and come up with a rate for each role that we need. And then also imagine how can this role actually have increment or promotion to the next one? What should this person do in order to achieve that? Yeah. And by the time this person goes to this stage, how would our financial projection be in our business direction and growth?
What you're telling me is basically you need to have a lot of clarity on a lot of processes that are usually very confusing and chaotic, let's say, or not undefined in many companies.
Yeah.
So you need to have a lot of clarity. Is there a blueprint that you're developing at MalaysianPAYGAP so that companies can just follow the lead that CoinGecko?
I have a latest blueprint, the internship one. Somebody reach out.
It's done already?
It's the one that I posted on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But definitely need to do modification.
Okay.
But I think that is a blueprint that would makes us comfortable to explore with interns first. Yeah. And then apply this blueprint into our full-time employees.
Okay. For SMB. And then for larger ones or small business, basically you are activists. So it's more easy to accept. I guess the blueprint I'm talking about, the dream would be taking old school companies and making them pay transparent.
That is a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Actually, I just have this idea that when I told you that companies should have data to back up a lot of fear that they feel around pay transparency, actually we should be doing this survey.
The service, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. Maybe not just in pay, but all the topics of HR. Any exciting innovation you've seen? I see it's in pay, it's great, but anywhere in organizational development?
Actually, my answer is a no. I'll need my product manager to help answer this one.
Okay.
I've been so occupied with making media works to make MalaysianPAYGAP sustain. I just stopped looking at news and what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. He's the one on track with a lot of stuff.
Okay.
He won't be showing his face, so just look at this bear. The bear will be talking.
What's the one exciting things you've seen in HR in terms of innovation?
Yeah, sure. I think in the HR tech landscape right now, you can see there's this two really interesting company. One's called Merkle in the US, and in Malaysia, there's actually a version of it called Our Team. What they're doing is actually AI recruiting. How it works is user will actually onboard and then do an interview with just like a virtual employer. And then through that, they will do some big data analysis and then churn out a report. So what this does is actually cutting down a lot of time for recruiter to filter through all this user. We think that this could possibly be the future, although we don't think that this would completely replace the employment landscape, but we do think that this is one of the very interesting innovation within this space.
So you guys at MalaysianPAYGAP are pushing the envelope on pay. Are you actively doing this like monitoring of the environment for like to build maybe the future of work?
We are not because we're still staying true to our mission, which is pay transparency. We don't want to be distracted within this environment because recruiting is actually a very competitive landscape. But we do want to support this innovation, and I think we do want to find a way in terms of how we fit in within this landscape. I think how we can impact this recruitment landscape is to provide more data and to encourage through our collaboration of more data transparency, so that when the employee is looking for a job, they can actually have expectation of what the job is paying for. So I think in MalaysianPAYGAP, how are we playing our part in this is so that we can collaborate and provide data to recruiting platforms so that their users are informed in terms of the job roles, what should be the market rate for it.
Got it. And maybe we talked about what you guys are doing. If we look at 10 years from now, what is the ideal organization looking like on pay? What is the ideal state of what you guys are building?
I think ultimately what we want to reach, like Prestine said in the beginning, it's that a lot of people know what they are worth. So I think right now you can see that for a certain role within the market, there's actually a big pay discrepancy. I think what we are hoping for in the future is that for certain roles, the pay discrepancy would be lesser and people know what they are worth. And even if they're not worth that money today, they know why people are worth that money. I think that is what our platform is doing. We are not only telling you what role is worth what amount, we are also telling you why this person in this role is worth this amount and how did they achieve it. So I think this is something that we hope to see.
You spoke about CoinGecko as being more advanced or more innovative on pay. Any other organizations in Malaysia, but globally as well, that you would recommend I check?
The government.
The government?
Yeah.
They are transparent?
Yeah, they have a pay grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In Malaysia? Everywhere else in Asia or just Malaysia?
I think everywhere. Government servant salary is always a public data.
Okay. In France, I don't think so, but okay, I'll check. I'd be surprised. Okay, so more questions on more the technical side or the product. What's the question about compensation? No one is asking, but should definitely ask.
Yeah, sure. I think when people are getting hired, I think one of the big thing is they will negotiate for their pay. But I think one of the big black boxes, what would my pay look like when I'm 1 year into the role or 2 years into the role? I think that this is something that maybe HR should be clarifying and maybe employees should be asking ahead of time. So I think one common pattern is that at least within the Malaysian market, a lot of the company is willing to give you a big increment when you're jumping from one company to another company. But then after that, when you're within the company, your pay become very stagnated. What this leads to is actually a churn of employee, because once they're inside there, they will feel that they are not valued and they're not getting that increment that they would get by just jumping into another company. So I think this is something that employees should actively seek to ask. And I don't think that HR should be dodging this kind of question as well.
Okay, thank you. What's the value for companies to adopt pay transparency? Because we talked about the non-threat or the fact that fear might be just an invention. It's not based on reality. But what is the actual value of becoming pay transparent?
Yeah, this is a very good question actually. The main value out of this is retention of your talent. When your candidate can very clearly know what they can expect for the next year, or what can they expect after they achieve a certain goal within the company, I think this would actually lead to a better retention. So if you look at, I don't really have the data, but I think average retention within company, maybe it's like 2 to 3 years. We do hope that through transparency, maybe we can increase the retention value of talent as they have better expectation of how they're getting compensated.
Are there organizations you would not recommend to be pay transparent?
Yeah. I would say organization with the employers that prioritize profit to themselves, then pay transparency could be quite a tough one. Because I think pay transparency shouldn't just be amongst the employees. The management, top management should also be part of the transparency. Yeah.
For leaders who are just starting with their pay transparency within their organizations, so CoinGecko at the beginning, for instance, what is the first step you would recommend after the survey?
Actually, so after the survey is to figure out what is the sentiment around pay transparency. So after they realize that majority of the employees are okay with that and prefer such clarity, and there wouldn't be a lot of resentment or jealousy that fostered. It's just a blueprint there for them to move up to their career. Then I think it's really important to obtain really accurate market data, because you do need the set of market data, and not just any market data. It should be the market data of knowing that what are some of the companies that my employees prone to apply to, and then benchmark against those. What do you think?
I think that getting data is one, and I think it's the whole planning of change. Because for a company that have existed for so long, just by disclosing pay abruptly might not be the most brilliant move, because most probably within the organization itself, there's a lot of discrepancy of pay itself. So you have to plan for things like you have to define how each role must be paid, and how do you define each seniority, how are they being paid. Then after that, you probably need to do salary adjustment as well for people that are underpaid. So I think this whole like planning process is not easy, and change is not easy as well. But attaining is the first step, and then next is planning this whole big change so that people will not feel uncomfortable of this entire change.
How do you guys support organizations who are taking those steps? So I understand you guys do market research for companies. Can you tell us about the few steps and how deep you go with the clients? Do you work with HR consultants, or do you do things internally? How does it work?
As of now, we only have a client that we provided with a salary report, and it's just merely from data point of view. But I can foresee that in the future, what additional service and support that they need, we might evolve to be providing those. Quite flexible.
Okay, thank you. We spoke about leaders, so let's say CEOs, owners of companies. What about HR teams who are going to be our audience, who are thinking about these topics? What would you recommend they check? How can they learn about this topic, about the value? How can they convince their management that this is an initiative at least to look at?
How should they be looking at this? I think that we actually started a fire. Yeah. Now, majority of the people are getting comfortable to talk about pay transparency. And so when you do not implement in your company, or you do not encourage such talk, and then you continue to dash people down from talking about it, eventually you will breed your own needs for advocacy. So I think it's better for them to really observe what is going on in the bigger environment. And also I think with Gen Z coming into the picture, they value transparency in communication. So when you remove this one, you put everybody in their individual black box. Would that be healthy in the long run? Yeah. So I think they definitely need to attune to what the culture is shifting into.
Thank you. Maybe one last question would be, what did I miss? So we've been talking for a few minutes already. Are there core topics that you want to talk about on the market, core aspects of what you do that I didn't cover?
You should ask us how we make money. Because it's quite an interesting area that we are in right now.
How do you make money?
We're actually creating employers branding video. But I think in the past, employers branding video is more like a digital brochure. They will say that they have this and that. And then on the other side, there is this trend of employers branding where team in an organization will be doing content for themselves. But there are a lot of companies are doing it bad, and some companies are doing it good. The bad ones would be the team following any trend that they see on social media and do it. Okay, cool. Your team looks like they are having fun, but what are you communicating the true value of what your company is offering? I see that group of people having fun, but I don't know about your mission. So with us, I would say we do a combination of two. And also, we started off by doing street interviews. So we also bring this raw element into employers branding video. We will go into a company, we'll follow a person, a job role, and then we'll talk about this person's story. And while this person's story is being told, we can see how the company looks like and what is their mission and how does that mission actually align with that person's value. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other things that I missed? On pay transparency, on HR. A subject that is dear to us is the future of work. So basically those topics that are more kind of cutting edge. I think the pay problem, like we talked about CoinGecko, I don't imagine you would find dozens of organizations in Malaysia on the private sector that are doing this. So what would you say about how do we bring it about? You said 2 years for the employers. What else can we see emerge beyond that particular aspect.
This is something that you can add on. Basically, Pristine, you shared before that you think that the future of employment will look like a shared talent pool instead of just a talent pool within Malaysia itself.
Yeah, so that's what I believe in, but I'm not sure whether that would reflect the reality. Yeah, but I definitely think not only share talent pool, but share talent pool globally. I think that moving forward, teams are going to be smaller because technology actually enable to have much smaller team, but then everybody is expected to work at their best. And our product manager brought up a really good point just now when we discussed off the camera. He's saying that now quality would be the priority. Quantity doesn't mean much. Yeah, so I think the future of work is smaller team and people only want to work with really excellent people. So there will be a big group of people being left out, and what are we going to do with them? But then those would be, I would say, like under the government policy to try to reskill and upskill people as many as possible.
So the power law.
Yeah, I also think that he doesn't agree with that. I'm also curious about your thought. I actually think that 10 years from now, companies would prioritize giving the best possible benefits to their employees. I think that the world is moving into quite an unstable phase. I'm not sure whether it's because we are in a transitional period right now. I think people have so much fear around social security. Or as company matured up with the years, I do believe that they now would understand that not only I need to compensate people who work for me well, how can we take care of you much better, apart from the essential basic needs like healthcare support. Wait, when did you first know about us?
I think last year. I was researching actively the HR ecosystem. So I found you last year.
So what was your first thought about
God.
Malaysian PayGap?
My first thought, wow, landmine, or, mine land, when you work on...
Oh, no.
I was thinking this. I think I associate you in my mind with a friend of mine who works on Taboo in Croatia. So she does a Taboo mic, and basically any topic that is difficult to talk about, she brings it into companies. So to me, she's the best person to break the ice, because we all live in a kind of a charade where we all have masks. We know that the truth is not told, but we still go with the flow that has been kind of imposed to us. So for me, this particular topic of Taboo is a great way to break the mold, to break the organization skeleton or fixity to like, okay, let's build something new, So when I saw you, I thought about my friend and what she's doing, but she's not just pay. She talks about many things like women in the workforce, LGBTQ, any kind of topic that is kind of hard.
That's such a good idea.
So to me, you're one of the topics that are difficult to talk about. So everyone is working on eggshell, but that's not the only topic. Topics like that have a transformative power. That's what I was thinking. And then selfishly, I was like, I need to do marketing for brioHR. Controversial topics are amazing, and you have a great voice. So I was looking forward to that moment.
So if you were the founder of Malaysian PayGap, what would you do to push Malaysian PayGap or PayGap.Asia, our website, to its best potential?
I was working in classifieds. So it's basically a marketplace where you have a demand and offer. What we did was to work with the people who had the most scale. So we went after the OEMs and the dealerships because they have the inventory. And then you get the consumers to come. So to me, it's probably easier to go after, with a sales team, to go after the bigger companies, work with them on the kind of projects you talked about, instead of just going one by one with the consumers, which I think are going to be on your side anyway. So I would go with the bigger inventory and get more and more data on the platform through these engagements. Yeah, and I would probably do it with one, a direct sales force, and two, a very structured, standardized process to navigate that change, which is difficult. Because I think what you're talking about is not so much the pay transparency, but what you were talking about, which is like all your roles, having lots of clarity on your roles and on your levels, how those career paths are weaving in an organization. It's a very difficult topic, and probably you want HR experts that are doing this. Yeah.
I think in that way, Levels.FYI, they're doing it really well, but they only hyper-focus on the tech industry. I think for us, it's so hard to choose an industry to focus on. We realized that this is what would make our data more meaningful.
Which would be reduced. Oh yeah, I mean, that's a good idea actually to go for a niche.
Yeah, but then going for a niche, because we already had a community of different industry different specialization.
Finance.
If we go
PAYGAP.
niche, it's so
Subdomain.
sad.
It's a subdomain, but it's more like
Banking.paygap.asia.
yeah, I think
Tech.paygap.asia.
yeah, I think there's I was thinking about it for Brio actually to get some data about some salaries on one industry, just to maybe you can do crowd conversation of which industry do we prioritize. Basically, you ask everyone which one do we go for, and then based on the answers you go for it.
Yeah.
Crowdsource the idea of which one is the first one.
Right now, our data is definitely pointing towards banking, tech, manufacturing.
Said.
But I don't think that Malaysia it's a tech first country. So banking, accounting, finance is one of the most common part of Malaysia.
It's just that tech in Malaysia, product manager is saying that Malaysia is not a tech-focused country. So banking and manufacturing definitely would be the core. But then tech is also the industry with the biggest freedom in pay mobility. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to probably look at the innovation curve, like which are the early innovators, and it's probably going to be tech.
Yeah. Oh, we have a big project coming up. This is more of a project for social responsibility because I find that in Malaysia, a lot of youngsters are quite lost as to what they can do because Malaysians are so low-key. People who are very successful, they really work their ass off to achieve something. They don't want their name known. So we have this big video project where we want to interview people in different job roles and then set them as the role model for youngster to understand better. For example, we could be interviewing a drone pilot next year. Anybody. Jobs that people are unexpected to learn about. And this is also aligned with our employers branding. And on our website, we have reserved advertisement spots to put the video. Because right now, people are doing very targeted search on our website. Almost every 5 minutes, there's people using our website. So this is a good sign. So I hope that whenever they search for a job role, there is a video reference to what this job actually entails.
Love it. So it's like the kind of the roadmap, the first step of the roadmap. This would be how it looks like. And then you would have deeper data on the levels, I imagine, at some point. Yeah.
Actually, I really love the app Flighty. Do you use it?
I don't use it now.
It's amazing. I wish we can achieve something like this. So I think the tech team probably hate this. Whenever I see something good, I'm just like, can we do this? It's a really good app. Yeah. Basically, you can see in your lifetime how many flights have you taken. It could be 56. And in that 56 flights, what are the airlines? The top 5 airlines. And then from that, what are the continents that you travel the most to? And how many flights was delayed in your life? And so how many hours did you waste in that? So a very clear personal data surrounding traveling. I wish that in our career, we could have such in-depth data too.
Love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I was unexpected to be interviewed. Thank you, Prestine. Cool. Super, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you.